Welcome back to Indianomics. We are discussing what is needed to make the proposed International Financial Centre in Gift City in Gujarat a financial destination comparable to Hong Kong or London. Well, let me start with you, Neeraj. From what you have heard Mr. Thakur explaining in terms of the way in which the International Centre is likely to be laid out, what is your best guess? Will this be enough to attract a lot of foreign brokerages and banks to this centre?
My 2 cents here is that we, if you're trying to compare with what happens in a jurisdiction such as Singapore or Hong Kong, or for that matter Dubai, there is a vast difference between the regulatory framework which is applicable in those jurisdictions versus how we treat financial services industry in India, both with respect to the regulatory framework as well as with respect to the taxation framework. So at a very high level, whether people will be interested in coming up and setting up here, I think besides the issues of accessibility, ability to communicate, and ability to sort of travel easily, the other issues will also be that how closely we can come to some of these jurisdictions in terms of our regulatory and taxation framework. A large number of multinational foreign institutions such as ourselves today have a vast number of employees in setups which are basically what we call as the offshoring centers, which is basically where these employees undertake various activities which are not necessarily financial transactions but support services for our global offices. So in some senses, this SEZ concept, which has been already in existence, is being used by global financial services industry to offshore and send a lot of business into India. Now the question is whether we can upgrade that to actual financial transactions in the sense of a financial center, and I think we need a fairly comprehensive framework for that.
Mr. Thakur, what can be the tax concessions or tax regime for companies located in the International Financial Centre? Obviously, there will not be Indian tax laws like 30% if you make interest income and capital gains 20%. It will not be that. It would be something comparable globally, right?
Now, let me first clarify that in this centre, the Offshore International Financial Centre will not be adopted on the model of Singapore or Hong Kong.
Okay.
Their currencies, because Indian rupee is not fully convertible. So I would like to say that what we are following is a Malaysian model, because Malaysian currency is also like Indian rupee is not fully convertible. But in this territory of international financial, it will be separated.
Okay.
It will be a deemed foreign territory within India for all regulatory and procedural approvals. It will be a totally insecure from the domestic market.
I get it. What about tax?
Where the transactions, the tax also, we were recommending that whatever the tax implications available from the SEZ sectors, the same will be applicable in this International Financial Centre also.
Jayesh, what have you made of this concept legally, and would you have any further questions for Mr. Thakur?
I think if you're asking me how do I design this to make it really work and what would be a success measure, if we can get even 10% of the Indians employed in Singapore into the centre, I think it will be a great success. That's a success measure as a starting point. So then what do I need to have in place to make it a success? And this is what the regulators and the government has to really give it a serious thought. Start from that, I'll be permitting everything. Let me just set out what I will not permit. So okay, I will not permit gambling and casinos maybe, obviously. But otherwise, any financial product, any securities, markets, transactions, even commodities, derivatives, whatnot, everything should be permissible. if you are really talking of an international financial center, you need to completely depart from the domestic mindset where we have a huge control mechanism in place for the various segments of the financial and commodities markets. And for me, international financial center has to include commodities. Otherwise, there's a huge gap out there. And even the same thing for insurance and all that. I give a simple product which is not there in Indian markets, which is there offshore. Third-party warrants. Today, if I want to take a 3-year view on Infosys, I have to buy the share. There's no other way I can do it. But third-party warrants means I go and buy a warrant which is nominal investment, and I get to take a 3 or 5 year whatever view on that stock. Yeah. So like that, the number of
for that matter, a CDS on an Indian corporate bond.
Absolutely, and also listing of REITs from whichever neighboring country or globally you want to. I mean, we have Indian REITs effectively getting listed on Singapore. You would be allowing the other way around. Second, you asked a fair question that what does it mean for in day-to-day terms, taxi drivers and all that. I would have thought you very much still continue to transact in Indian rupees for your daily transactions. It is the actual financial transactions which get denominated in dollars or any of the global convertible currencies, the G7 currencies or G8 now rather, right? And also from a perspective of the regulator, yes, as Mr. Thakur rightly said, each of them will have set up a division there and be manned from there, and it becomes ring fence. But from a physical entry perspective, it is no different from you entering BKC. It's just an island by itself, so to speak, and that's how you enter and exit. And what matters is the transactions being booked within how they're getting booked and accounted for. Two key things, according to me, which can sort of really make a huge difference. One is the court infrastructure, and we need to really look at the Dubai model there. Increasingly, global transactions are now referring to DIFC, the Dubai International Finance Center courts, as a dispute resolution mechanism. And the reason they have managed to inspire that confidence is those courts are actually manned by judges coming in from England and Singapore and whatnot, completely technology driven, completely efficient in time-bound disposal of matters. So it's a huge radical change from what we are used to in India. So being able to have that mindset and okay, I will do what it takes. And second is on the tax side, we talked about SEZ. We have to some extent muddled up the taxation of SEZ. First we talked of tax-free and then we imposed MAT and all that. Again, you need to be completely clear that this is not domestic area, this is a deemed foreign area. They're transacting with India as if they're transacting sitting in Singapore or Dubai, right? So what Indian tax am I talking about?
Mr. Thakur, you've got an idea of what the legal and the financial experts are envisaging. Is this doable?
No, this is the thing which I would like to clarify, that about the capital market or securities transactions, NSE and Bombay Stock Exchange have already agreed to set up and sign an agreement. The International Financial Center in London, New York can also set up their branches and offices. And the listing of Indian companies and also the overseas companies in Southeast Asia, other things, they can be listed there, but the transactions will be done, trading will be done only not in Indian rupees, but they will be done only in foreign currency, particularly in US dollars. Just as if the Indian company list is London, they are done in pound sterling. If they are listed in New York, they are done in dollars. Similarly, the listing of companies in India and other overseas countries in the gift city market, they will be done transactions only in dollars, not in rupees also.
Fair point.
Similarly, if LIC opens a branch there, LIC cannot issue policies in dollars from India, but once they open a branch, they can issue policies all over the world.
Fair enough.
Collect premium in dollar and settle claims in dollars.
I followed that. Jayesh was just speaking about the Dubai International Financial Center's courts, that they have been able to, get judges from London and other Western nations. Will that be, set in this Dubai pattern in Gift City?
No, the dispute will be settled by there will be a separate a commission will be set up of the regulators there. The dispute, if they, as far as possible, but if the disputes are in terms of the Indian regulation, they may have to go, they cannot be settled by that. But as far as possible, the board to be set up of the senior representatives of all the regulators will be there. And they will like to resolve to the extent possible all the disputes, and they can do it.
I just want one sentence from all three of you. Mr. Thakur, you go first. What is the time you are envisaging when we may have at least a body of transactions and a reasonable body of companies listed in this international center? Are we looking at 2020?
Well, I think so, because first of all, the infrastructure has to be set up in Gift City. The construction has already been going on there. The infrastructure has to be set up for the overseas companies and Indian companies to set up off-road offices there or branches there. That will take some time, maybe 5 years, 6 years. That is the infrastructure once it is set up. And then in the meantime, once the regulations are announced by the government of India, they will be, marketing will be done so that overseas offices and things who want to set up their branches can set up this, that they can acquire the property either on a ownership basis or on a lease basis in this center.
So you're looking at a minimum of 3 or at least a minimum of 5 years?
At least 3 to 5 years minimum will be taken for creating the construction activities.
Get your point. What does it look like to you, Jayesh? Does it look like within 5 years this could be a thriving center or at least a fledgling?
I think barring the infrastructure timeline, which I have no idea, but otherwise this can become a thriving center. It can be a game changer, which for years we've been trying foul about exporting the Indian capital markets, the financial markets to centers all around the world. This could be the game changer which can bring those markets to a large extent back.
Neeraj, last thoughts. In 5 years, even some of Indian capital controls could disappear perhaps.
Well, perhaps Indian regulation will also move towards a more liberal regime. And I do remember visiting DIFC when it was, I think, just launched maybe in 2001, 2002. It takes a fairly long period of time to convince the investors that you have a fairly stable regulatory and tax regime. It takes a bit of a time to get the international financing community to look upon you as a interesting destination where you could, house yourself from a jurisdictional perspective. So I think all of these things take a little bit of a time, but I'll be very happy to see if over the next 5 years we have a very clearly enunciated policy stance around how we want to develop this project, what kind of products and services we think that the firms should be sort of engaging in, what's the kind of infrastructure we want to put in place. I think if all of these things are amply clarified and they are from international standpoint, they're competitive, they are good enough for people to start looking at this, this avenue as an attractive avenue to house their businesses, I think it'll be a good achievement.
All right. Mr. Thakur, Jayesh, Neeraj, thank you very much for joining me in this conversation. Thank you for watching this edition of Indianomics.